Hello, I'm Orlin. Welcome to Speaking of Everything. With me, I have a very interesting guest. Many times been on this show and also in Harold Gibbs' life, so he's definitely not a stranger. Now he's a very big guy. He's president. So it's hard sometimes to get him, but he's here. President Mussington, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Good morning to you. Good morning to your listening audience. And I'm happy to be here with you. And like you said, I've been here many times, and always a pleasure to be on this talk show, a TV talk show, because it gives me an opportunity to speak directly to your listening audience. And I get some response every time I come on the show. I get some response from the listening audience, and it helps.
That's good to hear. One of these days, we'd love to have you just on the radio alone. Relax, sit down, and talk about everything. You can bring in your vice presidents if you want. I think that would be great.
Fine. You just send a schedule a proposal to the office, and I'll gladly respond.
All right, good.
Once I'm on the island.
Yeah. I know you're traveling quite a lot, right?
It happens that I go to France and other areas, but it's all part of the responsibility.
Yeah.
You can't sit here and get things done because you're still part of a system, which is the French administrative system. Yeah. So you got to be there voicing your opinion and putting on the table if it becomes necessary to get the attention.
Right.
Things doesn't happen automatically. Okay, you would say, okay, we are French citizens, we're part of the French government, and things will just happen automatically for us. No, you got to keep reminding them what your priorities are. So to get that done, you can't stay from St. Maarten and get it done. You have to be present in France, speak to the ministers, and then some of the time you'll go to France and then they will tell you the minister is not available, but you have to be bold enough to say no. I come here to see the administrator. I come here to see the minister. Because when you speak to the administrator, he still have to report to the minister. And the minister will say, when you talk directly to the minister, which is a politician like you,
right?
We can speak in each level of understanding what is priority, what is urgent for you to deal, in terms of dealing with your citizens.
Right.
And that is important.
Do people ask you as president of St. Maarten? French St. Maarten is a part of the French Republic.
Yes.
And they also have a president there. Do they ask you how come you're president? There's a president in France too?
Well, there are different layers of government. That too has to be made clear. I'm the president of what you call the Territorial Council of St. Maarten. Okay, so it's not like you're president of an independent nation.
Right.
You're president of what you call a collectivité, which is by virtue of Article 74 of the French Constitution, permits you to have a certain level of political responsibilities, things that you can deal with, and that's what I am dealing with. And so you preside over the territorial council meetings, which is the equivalent of your parliament on the southern side, and then you preside also over the executive council, which is a body of 7 members, which is the 4 vice presidents, a member from the opposition sits in there also, and then a member from the council sits in to give us a body of 7 members. And as a matter of fact, when I leave here, I'm going out to chair the meeting of the executive council, which is a weekly. We meet on a weekly basis to examine, the day-to-day running of the government.
You know what's so good about the French system is that if you're born in Marigot, my father was born in Marigot.
Mm-hmm.
Considered a Frenchman. I remember one time when I was a young guy on the Dutch side, they took my passport from me and told me, go Marigot for your passport, right? The French the Dutch side. Really, this happened in 1981. So I remember that very well. But the thing is that when you look at French St. Maarten, you have all the rights and privileges just like a guy born in Paris, right?
Yeah, because there's no such thing as a half a citizenship. It's either if you're a citizen, then whatever is provided by the French Constitution, then you are entitled to those benefits as well. And as a matter of fact, within the French system, whether you're born within a French nation or not, you have rights to free education and free health care if you can afford it. That's the systems that are in place, and certain politicians, especially the extreme right, are questioning those privileges for exactly what they would term foreigners or invaders. the extreme right is going to that extent to call them invaders. And so they want to put back in question certain measures that gone beyond your friend's citizenship, but it's a social system that is in place that gave France a certain reputation on the world map in terms of having that solidarity principles where once you're a citizen of the universe and you're in France, then they make these privileges available to you. But it's very costly, let's admit that, for the government, on the government budget.
Have you met Macron since you're president?
On a few occasions, yes. Yeah. Not in the overall office, but in different settings. We had direct contact with him to discuss St. Maarten priorities. Yeah, that happened. And the last time I saw him was at the Elysee Palace, where he invited all the presidents of the overseas departments to discuss future evolution of the political status of each territory. And there's something scheduled for July or sometime this month, or I think September of this year, 2025, where you will be in contact, and that seems setting with Macron again.
Yeah. See, you went through a very embarrassing situation there recently.
Tell me what you refer to.
The one where he's standing on the aircraft, the wife pushes. Yeah. You remember that?
When I stand on the aircraft?
He was standing on the aircraft, and his wife pushed him.
Oh, him! He went through an embarrassing situation. Yes, I got that. And then
not you, him.
Oh, him. Okay. That's why I said what are you referring to? Make sure that we got it right. And then Trump said that's his boy or whatever. But the thing is, what he should have done was to close the door. He should have closed. So like that, the world would not have known how Brigitte behaved that day. That was very joking, yes.
Yeah. The thing is about French St. Maarten is that it's unique because I had the Prime Minister of Dutch St. Maarten here, Dr. Mussington, and I said to him, have you met with President Mussington? He said, no. I said, any plans to? And he said, yes. Have you all met?
No, not on a one-on-one basis, yes. And it's not that the invitation hasn't been issued, but just have to coordinate timing so that we could really spend an hour or two to talk about St. Maarten, its future, the young generation, social issues, and especially in the area of cooperation where we can make things happen. For example, we have a budget of 4.5 million euros, what you call it, Interreg European funds, between both sides, to be used and consumed by a particular period between both sides. So we really need to spend some time. As a matter of fact, we were both at the reception organized by President of Parliament, Mr. Sarah Westcott, and to celebrate how many years of parliamentary procedures in existence. And we said that again, that we need to call each other and have that one-on-one discussion where we can, set a clear agenda as to where we're going, because our organic law permits us to really sit in a meaningful setting and discuss with our counterparts and stuff. But I must admit and confess that my schedule right now is so I'm so busy, put it that way, right now, that I really don't have all the time available. But my plan is to really make that time to have that kind of discussion with Prime Minister Marcelina, who seems to be a very open-minded guy and willing to really, given the proximity, the closeness, his father is also, his grandfather is also from Marigot. His mother, I think, who's in Caruso, I think, is also from Marigot.
Right.
Okay? And so again, that brings us closer to one another to be able to have legal or let's say basic reasons to why we should strengthen the cooperation or the working relationship between both sides. Okay? And that I'll pay some attention to it. But like I said, for right now, my agenda on a daily basis is full, and it doesn't give me much space to take on that cooperation level. But it's part of the agenda because it's necessary. You know, there are things that we have to be doing together, and like I said, I'll make time to make it happen.
You know, the thing, as you speak, I thought about the good old days with Claude and Dr. Petty.
Dr. Petty.
You know, it was just a hangout and a meet, and it wasn't formal. You know, you're in office now for 3 years, and the present prime minister's in office for now, if you add up the 2 times, a little over a year. You know, and you all haven't met. It's so hard for me to believe that.
Yeah, and like I said, it's a regretful situation, but it is a reality, and I'm not here to sugarcoat or to hide anything. It's the reality, and I sort of blame myself for part of it because he said that to me on 1 or 2 occasions. Call me and let's set up a meeting and we could talk. And I want to do that, and like I said, by now to August, after this vacation period is over, it will be part of my agenda because I want to do it. But I think too, let's look at the whole reality from a political perspective. There's a lot of uncertainty politically on this side of the island.
On that side.
Yeah, the ship jumping didn't solve, you know, the entire island. Let's put it that way. And during the discussions, at least in the keynote address at the event and at the Maho on Monday evening, there was a comment of that nature where there should be, you should be legislating on ship jumping to bring an end to it.
Right.
I believe it would be a step in the right direction because every time you have a ship jumping, it leads to the dismantling or the fall of government, and then the process kicks in where you have to go back to the polls to re-elect a new president. A new prime minister, well, at least a new government, and that is a setback for the island.
Right.
And also in terms of cooperation, North-South cooperation, it doesn't help neither with the situation. So from that perspective, I believe that any move to maintain or to guarantee certain political stability on the island should be, on this side of the island, a most welcome approach. Which is something that I encourage strongly because I see the consequences of this instability.
Because you don't have that on the French side.
No, I think from a political and a legislative perspective, measures has been taken to avoid that. So even if one or 2 persons choose to walk away and join the opposition bench, it still gives you a comfortable majority. Because here's the thing, on the night of the results, the team that comes out ahead, has an 8-seat majority, 8-seat bonus. That is to guarantee a certain stability, So either if 1 or 2 would jump during the course of the mandate, it would not affect the ruling majority from being effective and efficient in terms of their daily operation.
I don't know if this generation knows you. But you're an old war soldier, man, going back from the 1780s.
I must commend you, Aurel, and thank you so much because you were one of the first persons really with a TV program that invited us back then since in youth organization days. I can remember vividly, now that you're making reference to it. We didn't have much to say, but just that we were not happy with the situation. And the good thing is that you allow us the opportunity to say, come on my talk show and say what you want to say to to the entire island. And I'm very grateful to you for that. And it started back then. We were still teenagers when we get on your show. You said I was a young boy. And you paved the way for us, and ever since, you've been welcoming me on your talk show every now and then. So I'm very grateful to you for that.
But let me ask you, President Mussington, does SMECO still exist, or is...
No, that's many, many years ago. There was an attempt once to revive the organization, but no, it didn't bear any fruits. So right now I'm in the political arena, and I'm looking to really train younger ones to because I won't be around for too long in terms of in a political arena. My vision is that I'll finish this mandate, and then I'll ask the people's support for another mandate for another 5 years. So by 2000, because we have elections in 2027, And then after that mandate, we'll go into 2022. And now 2022, that's where I'll draw the line, and pass the baton. So from now until then, it is my duty and responsibility to promote young minds with political ambition, and not just to political ambition in the sense of just wanting to be in power to say I am the president or I am a vice president. No, it is to work on a clear-cut agenda, because I have set some long-term goals for my country, and so those who are coming in the future, I want them to really pick up from where I will left off eventually, because education, culture, social issues, those are not matters that you could solve overnight. So you must have a long-term vision. Because you want to improve the living standard of your people. You want to make sure that from now within the next 10 years, you would have a much educated population that could make positive decisions in regards to their future. So now you got to work towards university. You got to work towards social programs. When I talk about social programs, housing, you want people to improve their living conditions. And to do that, they must first and foremost have a decent house to live in. So you look at these plans, but it doesn't happen overnight. You have to secure the finances. You have to secure the land, because families will not be able to. All of them will not be able to build a house. Some have a privilege to own a piece of property that will be turned over to them from their parents, but others won't have that privilege, so therefore it becomes government responsibility to provide decent housing for those families or those young couples. And so you have to secure that as well. And the vision too, part of the vision is to make sure that when it comes to health care, yesterday I was in a session.
No worries.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was in a session where I had about 10 or 15 parents. All of them have a disabled child suffering from autism and other mental disorders, or physical disorders that you have to deal with. Okay, and you cannot play. Indifferent to those serious issues that will affect society on a whole. So there too, you got to now look, because it's a shared responsibility between state and collectivity,
right.
Okay, and local government. So you have to be able to put a process in place where those families can get the assistance needed, where you will create institutions where those children could be welcomed on a daily basis, and thus create the sort of educational program adapted to their mental capacity, to acquire knowledge. So you just can't treat them as if they don't exist. That's not a policy. That's not being responsible.
Right.
A responsible government cannot deal with things in that way. Like stick your head in the sand and pretend that the problems do not exist, or that the problems will go away on their own. That's the Austrian policy. I can't do that. My goal, my vision of things is to hold the bull by its horns. Let's talk about it, and then let's be more solution-oriented. How are we going to address this issue? What could be the alternative? What could be the answers to these various concerns that are coming forward by the mothers who are seriously affected? And that's what I'm committed to do. So that's what I said. And those who will take over from where we left off in the next 6 years, let's say, would have to share that vision, that we cannot let our people continue to sink. But on the contrary, we must stretch out our hands and give them a helping hand up forward. Upward mobility is the way forward.
Right. In case you just joined us, I'm Earl Gibbs here and Speaking of Everything on YouTube, Facebook, and on Hot 99.9 FM radio. My guest on the program is President Mussington. He's president of the collectivity of St. Maarten. When we come back, we'll continue speaking with him right here on Speaking of Everything. Please stay with us.
We are vibrant, expressive, warm, and diverse. Together, we conquer, and now we expand into new horizons, giving you more of the best. Introducing our new Bankomatico Plus with wider acceptance, purchase protection, and enhanced security. Whether you're online, traveling, or in paradise, Experience more with Windward Island Bank. Bank Amatico Plus. More of the best.
My guest here, and speaking about other thing, is President Mussington, and we're here speaking with him. President Mussington, I had one of your vice presidents here, Dr. Petty, and he made a statement about poverty on French and within the whole French Republic, and it's very serious.
I share that view. We discussed that that situation on numerous occasions in various settings at the collectivity, or in my office, to be more precise. And yes, it's a sad reality. But my goal is to say, okay, we observe the sad reality, but you must not stop there at just observation. Now, the next striking question would be, and rightfully so, what do we do now as government? So when I said the vision for the future is to look at housing, because to me, the first step towards combating poverty in society is to make sure that people can have a decent house to live in. Because when mother and father and children can live in a decent environment, it puts them in a state of mind where they be more at ease, more relaxed, and then from there now they can look at how they can deal with the unemployment issue, how they can deal with paying their rent, how they could deal with making sure that there's food on the table, and all other social issues related to the poverty situation. But if that's not dealt with in a very pragmatic or tangible manner, they will continue to suffer. The young children coming up would just find themselves into prostitution for the girls. The boys would be on the street trying to fend for themselves. They'll get caught up in drug trafficking and consequently behind prison bars. So you have to start from the beginning, and from the beginning is to provide decent housing, and that's what I'm committed to do. As a matter of fact, I have 2 programs for 2020. Hope to get them out of the ground in 2025, and that is to construct 150 apartments in French cul-de-sac, and then another 17 in Cripplegate, Friesby Cripplegate. And also we are looking at another area in Concordia where we could build at least another 50 more.
In Concordia?
In Concordia.
It's recorded up there already.
There's so many out there, but there's still, you see, you have, in terms of demand, you have over 3,000 people that knocking on our doors daily looking for a decent apartment, So you can't, again, turn a deaf ear or behave as if it probably does not exist. It, like I said, it's not responsible leadership. So there's some space available, and we're looking at the possibility of constructing some additional homes there for families. Yeah. Because 3,000 on a yearly basis, or at least the number right now is 3,000 and beyond 3,000. So you have to move with a sense of urgency, without full understanding that your people need you government, most desperately. So that's why we are doing that, because I want, a child would be at ease in school if he or she knows well at 1 o'clock when they go home, there's a decent meal on the table, or they go to their room and sit comfortably and study. But you're going home, you don't know where, there's no place to lay your head. In a very relaxing ambiance, a comfortable ambiance, it creates a certain situations where psychologically you're disturbed because you're not comfortable. There's so much struggles, in a home to make things happen for you. So it could have a significant impact on your ability to study and perform well in the classroom. And then the mother is not working or the father is not working. That too is a social burden on the whole family. So it disturbs the whole family structure. Okay, so government responsibility is to seek ways and means to combat that, the whole poverty issue. And as a matter of fact, when I told you before being on the talk show that traveling to Paris is not for the luxury, but it's to spend time in the different ministries. I've been to the Ministry of Social Affairs and Housing, and to get that clear message that we need financial support to be able to construct on a regular basis the amount of homes that we can house our families under decent conditions. And then I also went to the Ministry of Overseas Department. It was to echo the same concern, that we need government subsidies now to be able to assist. Because here's the thing, when I said you have to be the bold and brave leader to go out there and defend the country's interests, Mayotte is a French department in the Indian Ocean, and they have suffered tremendously from the devastation of a hurricane called Shido last year. And the thing is, the government now is putting up a clear plan of action from a financial perspective to provide millions of euros, but also European contribution to rebuild that entire island. But in the process, if you are not there to remind them of your priorities as well, because you could be forgotten in the process, just because Mayotte becomes a priority now. So it's an ongoing struggle, and like I said, you got to be on a regular basis, keep reminding them that you exist and that you too have urgent concerns, because they know of your poverty situation. Okay, but it becomes imperative that you, as the leader of the land, make sure that you step up to the plate and keep being that forceful voice for your country. And that's what I try to do with God's help.
President Mussington, Sint Maarten, we used to brag about us French and Dutch side, comparing us to the other islands in the Caribbean. We're way ahead, everything. We didn't have much poverty, and growing up, if we were poor, we didn't even know we were poor, compared to what it is today. Did you ever ask yourself, how the hell did we get here? Because it's not only on the French side, it's also the Dutch side. It's extreme poverty.
Let me put it this way. Is it reasonable or unreasonable? Everyone have the rights to weigh in on it and say how he feels. I look at from this angle. Yes, there were situations, unfortunate situations, that certain families lived or have experienced. And it got to, as well as I do, certain families in early 1900s traveled to various islands, especially to the Dominican Republic, to cut cane to survive. Some went to Aruba, Curacao to work in Lago or Shell companies, and then later on they leave those islands and went to the USA, which was an open market welcoming Caribbean people, because there was a need for the labor force. There were opportunities. You could have lived the American dream back then. From the 60s, and I think Dr. Claude Watty has made a significant contribution in terms of jump-starting the economy via tourism. And that has served and created a certain wealth in the country when we started to get the hotels. And from an economic perspective, things have changed. So the standard of living has increased significantly on the island. And then our island now becomes a very attractive island in the Caribbean, and you may get funds to it. And therefore, you got an influx of Caribbean people to the island. Some came with understanding that, yes, they're here to survive and to improve their living standard on the island, and they have integrated well and become part of the Sint Maarten family. There's weddings, and through different forms they have integrated in the Sint Maarten community. But unfortunately, some came but remained with the mentality from back home, and they will content themselves to the same lifestyle that they have known back in their country. So it led to a certain level of poverty, because you came to the island, but you didn't do much to improve, and you didn't change your mindset, in terms of, okay, I'm no longer in wherever the island where they came from, and you just behave as business as usual. Okay, so it's very, from a social perspective, somewhat degrading. And that's why today you have a high level of poverty, because some people came in search of a better life in the country, but didn't do anything to improve or change their mindset and do things the St. Maarten way. They did not venture what you call the indigenization process. In other words, become a St. Maarten, do as a St. Maarten would do, and be proud to be part of this St. Maarten community. And that didn't went down well, in the sense that it didn't help create a new ambiance where we would struggle to improve our living condition. And that has an effect on what we now experiencing. And if we describe, and you said, Mr. Petit described that well, the level of poverty is what we are living presently. And this is my whole effort, is to alleviate that, is to bring an end to that level of poverty in the country. And that's why when the Minister of Social Affairs visited the island, I was not present, but the Vice President, who was in charge, bring that out forcefully, that we need government assistance to combat. Because with the level of poverty comes crime, comes illegal practices in the country. So it's really an issue that we, with our little means, we are tackling. But again, we need full support of government, state government, to really deal with it and eradicate poverty. But it's not going to be an overnight process. Let's be realistic about that. Yes, yeah. It's a long-term process. But we fight. But first and foremost, the first step is to become conscious of it, that you got this issue that has to be tackled.
The airline, you took a lot of hit for it. How's it doing now?
I'm hoping to get some interesting wording today, because we have looked at how we can find an investor to help us restructure the airline. That's in the process. I'm keeping my finger crossed that during the day I'll get a phone call and say it's done. But we're at a level now where we need to validate the finances coming in, and once that is in, the whole restructuring process can go into effect. Okay, so I've been very optimistic, and I trust a great God who understands the purpose of the move. Some would argue that, hey, you are a collectivity, you are a government, you should not have invested 17 million into that airline. But my first approach was to say, hey, Air Antilles is out of the picture. You only have Air Caraïbes in a full monopoly, and they set the price. From 250, the ticket went up to 550 euros. And who was there to contest or to say no, it's not possible, and stepping in. And what a good thing is that we took that message, because you need to know this too. There's a certain amount of families with low income, little means, who have to travel on a regular basis for health reasons to Martinique, whether it's the cardiologist or any experts in Martinique for medical attention, and same thing for Guadeloupe. And this is on a regular basis. So how much of them would be able to afford a 500 euro ticket? Okay, so you have to step in as government to make sure that your family, the families then, with health issues, can have the opportunity to go travel regularly, because there's not all of them who benefit from the social security system. If you didn't contribute anything to the social security coffers, then you can't look for support from the social security. So therefore, you're left to fend for yourself, handle things on your own, and it becomes somewhat impossible for certain families to. So I couldn't have that on my conscience, knowing that a family had to go to Martinique or Guadeloupe for health care, and they suffer the consequence because the ticket was beyond what they could afford to pay. So we, from that perspective, we make sure that there was another airline, and that's why we started to put gradually funds into it. But it's the reason why it costs us that amount is because you had to deal with the state services, the general aviation, civil aviation department, and the process is not today, tomorrow, because security is a priority in the French nation. Outside of the nuclear system, the nuclear plants, it's aviation is high on the agenda in terms of security measures. So they would not deliver the license, unless you provide the guarantees, not only financial guarantees, but make sure that the planes have all the safety of the planes and the passengers is also a main concern of the government. So the inspections had to take place, and consequently, the dates when they would issue the license have to be reviewed and pushed back on numerous occasions. But in the meantime, the planes are grounded, and there's 150 employees.
They're not grounded anymore. Right?
No. More than a year now, the plane is up and running. And as a matter of fact, they just renewed for the next 3 months the license. So within that 3 months that we have to play with, we have to now confirm that the new investor, who's bringing us the amount of cash flow, would be able to help us restructure the airline. And that we are, like I said, verifying the banks, the origin of the fund. That too is a potent process in the French government. The origin of the fund, they don't just accept capital just like that. You could just bring 50 million.
You have to know where it's coming from, right?
They must. And all this dates back to the period of time when you had all these terrorist attacks in the French nation. So they started to cut off the financial sources. So any dollar comes into on our account in France, or in Europe, as a matter of fact, they will verify the source of it.
So this new investor, if they go ahead and invest in the company, is that going to reduce your shares, Sint Maarten shares?
No. If we choose, because to relinquish some of our shares, going to be 60% owner,
right.
So they're coming in, they're going to buy out the another partner, which is 40%. So they're going to replace the other partner and be the owners of 40% of the shares in the company. And so we still 60-40.
And out of the 60, you still have 10 that anyone can purchase? Is that?
No, it's our responsibility to decide, because the structure that we put in place, the legal structure that we put in place, says we can't go beyond 51%. I think can't go beyond that, lower than that rather, that 51%. So if we choose tomorrow to sell the 9% to remain, we can do that.
To sell local investors.
Yeah, that's a plan that we're considering that in the future. But we got to make sure that the airline is stabilized, the restructured process, the business plan, service purpose. We increase the number of routes that we are doing, and we get more into the Caribbean islands more. And that's the vision, that's the mission, to do more Caribbean flights and not just Guadeloupe, Martinique, St. Maarten. So we want to do Dominica, St. Lucia, all the way down south, and even up north more, St. Croix, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, So we have a clear plan of action, but the first step is to make sure we secure the investment that is on the table now by the new investor.
I know you have a meeting to go to, but at the same time I got to ask you, is everything on track so far? Everything we expected to accomplish?
Well, listen, I was just in Guadeloupe a week and a half ago, and I concluded, signed a convention, an agreement with the University of Guadeloupe. So for next school year, we're looking at having some of our students to go to the university on St. Maarten. Because what I've noticed is that, this is coming from my facts-finding mission when I travel to different cities in France, and I noticed some of our children are in France studying, but they were not prepared for that leap.
It's much different.
So I want to organize it in a way that they will spend at least another 2 years on the island and be more prepared to make that leap over to France to continue their studies, so that they could be more mentally prepared and psychologically more prepared to face the unknown. Because leaving St. Maarten to go to study in Europe is not an easy task. So they must manage in it to overcome the obstacles. Others are failing in the process. And, we give them the boost, which is a scholarship, Right now we give 4,400 euros per child. No, it's a grant, government grant, because we have European funds to help us to do that. So we're working with them. And from a sport perspective, we just had a ceremony there where we put a system in place called a Center for Excellence through sport and education. And we just had a graduation ceremony, and it's very promising. So I'm not, I haven't regretted making that investment, and because you're seeing where, as a matter of fact, we have a youngster who's now the 1,000 meter champion in Guadeloupe, So he's very promising as an athlete, so you want to encourage, and there are others behind coming. So it shows where, sport-wise, and again, I'll do what Manley did 10 years prior to when we had Usain Bolt. Yeah. He invested in culture, he invested in sport development.
It always pays off, eh?
It pays off. So I am putting the money in now with the hope that 10 years from now, we will be able to enjoy, young athletes, excelling on a national or international level. Yeah. So that's my hope, that's my dream. So I'm comfortable with what we're doing. We just have approved our budget, and everything is satisfactory. The opposition keep hanging because they want to get back in. But we are moving ahead, and I'm very pleased with the work that we're doing. I give God thanks for helping us in our daily endeavors.
You're referring to the budget of 2026?
Well, no. You see, at this period of time, no, we have planned for that after. But at a period of time like June, you have to vote what they call a supplementary budget.
Oh, okay.
And in other words, we have means to do that. Oh. Contrary to what was said, that it's a bankrupt government with no means, to carry out certain public policies.
So you're not bankrupt?
So no, we have been proven wrong. So I'm very pleased to report that from a financial perspective, we are doing good. We got the ability to secure bank loans. So we right in the process of securing 20 million to help us act in a very effective and efficient manner in terms of setting in public policies. Because when you set public policy, right, you must have the means now to pay for the plan of action that you want to carry out. So we're standing strong on that, and again, I give God a thanks for it.
How's the working relationship between you and the current prefect?
Oh, okay. Well, he seems a very quiet guy that understands that St. Maarten is not France.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
So in other words, every measure that we take, we look at it. Okay, this is what the law says, but now we're on St. Maarten. Then we have Article 74, that gives us a certain amount of political responsibilities. Mm-hmm. So we first look at the interest of St. Maarten, and once St. Maarten interest is taken into account, then we could sign on the measure because it served the purpose. And that's, I think, he's a very pragmatic prefect. He's not that the Republic says this, so it must be executed. Let's look at the reality of the land. And that, to me, is a very encouraging. Yeah. The other one was had that approach as well, but he seems to be into it a little deeper, and that helps. So we have a system in place where we would meet every Monday afternoon, 2 hours, and we will discuss issues and see what's the best approach to make things happen. And again, in the exchange of St. Maarten and his people. So I'm very much encouraged by his approach, because again, he's not this high-handed guy that say, hey, I'm here representing the Republic, the state of France, the government of France. This is what has to happen. No. He's very realistic and pragmatic, and I think that helps greatly.
That's very good. Very quickly before you go, is there anything we need to know that we don't know that's happening on the administration now? Are you got everything on the wraps?
Well, I don't know what to refer to. Well, I am, like I said, I'm very pleased with the way that, where we are going. So the measures that are in the pipeline, we are bringing them out. We are working tirelessly on making sure that we have the old tourist office. Uh-huh. We're turning that into a cultural center,
really?
Where we would have the let's say the creative arts. Mm. You want to have your painters, you want to have your singers, you want to have your poets come there and have events where you would invite the general population, and then we make it open to the school kids and also the tourists visiting the island, where they can go there and be in tune to the St. Maarten culture, the St. Maarten identity. So a lot of things would be on exhibition, year round. And, you want to create that atmosphere where you give a sense of St. Martinism. You want to create a St. Maarten spirit. I'm from here, I belong here, and I'm proud to be a St. Maarten. This is what we can showcase to the outer world. Yeah. So that structure is as a matter of fact, we visited it the other day, and they're finishing the work. And what is regretful is that the former government let that place to just stay there and dilapidate it, but we choose to hold the bull by its horns and turn it into what we think it will be more suiting for the country, and that I'm very proud of that achievement.
Well,
and we're making strides in other areas. I'm looking at a center where we will have the youngsters who like a foundation school, to learn a trade. Those coming back from prison, those on the street doing nothing. We'll create a center, hopefully next year, where they will be able to learn plumbing, or joining, not joining, carpentry,
yeah.
You want them to be more effective and spend time learning a trade, because we don't have much professionals in this country anymore.
We used to, not anymore.
Not anymore, that's what I'm saying. So I want to create a new setting where we could promote young professionals in the building field, and also in other areas that are vital to the economy, because you now to want to go into solar panel system to save energy. So you want to know that you got young men who can install a solar panel system,
right,
instead of all the technicians have to come from France or Guadeloupe, set up their companies and make the money. So you want to introduce a system where your people too, your young men and women can create their own company, yeah, and be productive in the business world.
I noticed a building in Concordia School where the entire roof is solar panels. Really good. Yeah.
That's the whole idea. So you just don't want to make sure that you have the professionals from the territory who can install and repair those panels.
Well, President Mussington, I want to thank you for coming in and speaking with us.
Well, thank you for having me. And like I said, anytime the invitation show up, I'll be here. I'll be respond. Okay, right. So thank you for having me.
And thank you for being here. All right.
Pleasure is mine.
Thank you. Okay. And that's it for now on Speaking of Everything on YouTube, Facebook, and on Hot 99.9 FM radio. See you next time. Take care. Bye.